Well, it's a lovely day out in Bridgend today. The sun is shining and there's nary a cloud in the sky. What you can't see from the video is the 18 to 20 mile an hour wind. Still, I suppose it's nice to have it dry. I'm out on the Giant again today. Apparently, the new wheel for the trek should be ready tomorrow. So I'm hoping that's going to cure all my problems. And maybe I'm hoping for too much. Because whilst it's a 32 spoke wheel compared to the 28 I've got at the moment, because it's still a Bontrager, which is Trek's house brand wheel. And as such, it's made to be as cheap as possible. It's still made with aluminium spoke nipples, for example, which are known to be a weak spot on wheels. That aluminium's cheaper than brass. So, over the time since I've been back into cycling, I've started learning that some things can justify their cost, but I think others can't. And some people, quite a lot in fact, will spend money because it's the in thing. And it's always difficult to know where that point is. When I was racing, I had the best of everything. Of course I did. I was racing. I've learned that it's worth spending a bit of money on wheels. Learned why some are better than others, but I still don't think I need carbon wheels. And there is a tendency in any game for people to spend more money because they want to be taken seriously. As a professional photographer, you're expected to have a Canon or a Nikon camera. And if it's a Canon, the lenses should be white. And one of my colleagues, who was in an administrative role, was also an enthusiast. So he would come on some photo shoots with me with his entry-level camera. And people did treat him differently. There's no question. He was seen very much as Steve's assistant. In the early days of mirrorless cameras, Samsung brought out an incredible camera, the NX1. And I got one because it was an incredible camera. But it wasn't a Canon and it wasn't a Nikon. And I took it to an air show. And when I got back, my colleague said to me, what did they think of your Samsung camera? Did they laugh at you? And I said, no. Interestingly enough, it generated quite a lot of interest. And he said, yep, that's because it was you. because you're a big name in the photography business. And he said if I'd taken it there, they would have laughed at me. And I think this happens in cycling. The first thing people do is chuck away their wheels, because you don't want to be seen as the amateur, as the nobody on the group ride. And I personally think these really deep carbon wheels look silly, but that's probably just a consequence of my age. And what I'm interested in is, do they actually make a difference, or is it a psychological difference? Now, I do plan to upgrade this bike to 105, but there's two reasons for that. The first one is, I did actually want an SL1 when I got this, but they were none available. And secondly, I'm having problems with this Sora system, and I'm of the opinion that it might be faulty. And if it is, what's the point of replacing it with the same, and for very little, a little bit more money, I can go for 105. So that's my plan. Should I say, what I do really find interesting is this constant need for change. It really has become a thing. I'm considering an FX Sport 5 as my next bike. So I've gone on to the FX group on Facebook. I'm also a member of the Trek Checkpoint group, and something that came up on the Checkpoint group was, has anyone converted their checkpoint to a flat bar? And I thought that was interesting. Started reading it, and the general consensus was, no, it's too much trouble and it's never quite right. If you want a flat bar, buy a flat bar bike. A couple of days later, on the FX group, somebody asked, has anybody converted their FX to a drop bar? And again, most people said, if you want a drop bar bike, why don't you buy a Checkpoint? Never seen it so busy on this roundabout. And this seems to be a bit of a theme lately. Constant need to change. Buy something you don't want, and then try and convert it to what you did want, instead of just buying what you did want. It all seems a bit strange to me. So quite often on these groups, people will be saying things like, I've just ordered my Trek FX and I've ordered a new saddle and new grips, new wheels, and that's without even trying the ones that the bike came with. I get that you try them and go, nah, I'd be better off with something else. I fell for it myself when I got this Giant. I've got to get a new saddle, this is so uncomfortable. And I'm glad people persuaded me not to, because there's nothing whatsoever wrong with the saddle. It was just my riding position. It's quite common to see Facebook adverts for components advert will say, never used, taken off a brand new bike. And I think, surely, if you want to change all of the components on a new bike, you'd be better off buying a frame and building it up yourself. So I'm interested. Let me know in the comments if you're one of those that likes to tinker and change things, and maybe there's something I'm missing. Maybe it's just that I'm too tight, because I think bikes are too expensive. Well, I begrudge spending more money on a bike that I already consider is too expensive. And I do find it annoying that manufacturers cheap out on components instead of building the bike the way they should have in the first place. So if you are one of those who likes to bling out your bike, tell me honestly, is it for look, or is it for a genuine performance gain? And if it is for performance gain, is that psychological or real? Thank you.